right, I want to welcome everybody back to another episode of These Shadows podcast. And this week, I'm excited because one of my connections I was able to make down in San Antonio at the AAFES, Chief Master Sergeant Kevin Osby. He is a Senior Enlisted Advisor for the Army, Air Force, Exchange Service. He also has an incredible podcast. I don't say this about anybody. I'm envious of his podcast. And I told him that when I was talking to him down there, Chief Chat, and just to show who he's had on there, Matthew McConaughey, Jamie Foxx just recently. You may have heard of this guy, Dwayne Johnson. He talks to any and everybody. Sir, welcome to the Shadows.
Hey Trip, how you doing, man? Thank you for having me on. It's an honor that you even asked me to be on your platform, but I love what you do, and I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited for this, especially once we started talking down in Texas. But I got to show you something. So check this out. That for all the YouTube people. Oh, come on.
You got DJ on. You got the University of Miami DJ on there.
I did. Well, that was more like Nation of Domination.
Yeah.
Yep. But that was Intercontinental Champion Rock. But yeah, actually. It was funny because, folks, I tell you, go check out his Chief Chat with him, where he drops the "It Doesn't Matter" line on the Rock. I like how you ask him, what should you call him? What was it? He was like,
he told me to call him Big Daddy, and I was like, I'm not Big Daddy.
Big Daddy, like, call no grown man Big Daddy. But he was signing the autograph for me, and he asked me what my name was, and I was talking to him, and I was just like, Trip. And right when I started, I got the T and the R out of my mouth, and he said, "It doesn't matter what your name is." And at the time, I was like, first I was a little taken back, and I'm like, "Oh no, he got me. That's the coolest thing ever." But it was nice to see you return the favor.
Man, I got you. Don't even worry about it, man. But no, he was an excellent guest. It was it's a big wrestling fan coming up with WCW and WWF and then WWE and so Rock versus Stone Cold, that was something I watched up and to fast forward, almost 20 years later, and I'm actually interviewing. So I scratch my head sometimes, just knowing you kind of what I to be able to do this job and talk to so many cool people. It's just, and what did I do right to get in this position? So it's just, it's the exchange kind of just threw this in my lap pretty much. This podcast, and we're starting the podcast, and we're able to get some cool guests, and we want you to host it as our Senior Enlisted Advisor. They let me be myself, and I haven't got fired yet. So man,
you're doing good.
That's a blessing.
Yeah, you're doing really good, and I mean, I'm telling you, folks, incredible guests. We're gonna have the links here in the episode description for this one. But the first thing before we start to unpack your story a little bit as to who you are, I'm gonna put you through the fearful 5 questions that we're gonna have. I mentioned it last week on our episode, but talking to previous guests, they always tell me they're more nervous answering these 5 questions than they are telling their own story. They're actually not that bad, but
I'm nervous. So let's do it though.
Just hyping it up. I'm gonna get a little video here that I'm gonna drop before it just to build up a little bit more as well. But
okay.
So this episode's dropping in October. What is your go-to Halloween movie?
Go-to Halloween movie? Ooh, I grew up on scary movies.
Okay.
Just to do Disney or anything else. She loved Friday the 13th, and so I probably can watch 1 through 6, and probably can say everything. Go to Friday the 13th movies.
It's funny you say Friday the 13th. I have Robert Englund's, or that's Nightmare. What am I talking about?
Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah. I got the Nightmare on Elm Street glove sitting in front of me. I got a Friday the 13th poster sitting over here signed by Adrian King. I got a little horror section over here. I got my Halloween poster signed. I'll have to drop it on Instagram, but yeah, Friday the 13th. Yeah, I didn't like it when he started going to space.
Yeah, it started getting too crazy. You know, it got a little weird. I like the first, second, third, fourth, pretty much. I did watch Nightmare on Elm Street. Got that kind of weird as a kid because you know you start having like real dreams about Freddy Krueger, and so put stuff in that and Child's Play too. Child's Play was another one. 85 or 85, 86. It's crazy to think that Chucky's that old, right? The movies that I grew up on, and we would watch it endlessly and still have nightmares.
Okay, hold on. I'll tell you what. We're going to improv a little bit here. I'll show you this.
Okay, let's do it.
There's the glove.
Oh yeah.
And then that's my Jason mask signed by like 6 different Jasons. So this is
look, we're like man. Look at that. You meet somebody and you just don't know how much in common you have with people.
First rapid fire question.
Absolutely.
Next one for you. For over on our website, shadowspodcast.com, we have a resource recommendation. If you were to recommend a book, a podcast to any, can't be yours, can't be Shadows or yours, but what would you recommend to them?
So I really like what's the podcast? The Pivot podcast. I really enjoy the conversations they have. I think there was one with Inky Johnson. I follow Inky Johnson a lot on his Inky Johnson motivational speaker. Was a football player, got injured in his arm, but he goes around and talks to all kind of sports teams and stuff. And man, he drove many like life jewels and how adversity to really find positivity in everything. And so there was an episode with him on. I watched probably like 5 times, over and over again, like repeatedly. So much stuff that he was throwing at me. I was like, you know what? Let me digest this, and then let me go. So, the Pivot podcast is something that I keep up with on record.
Okay, so we'll have Pivot podcasts on our resource recommendations over on the website. And that's, to me, that's a good episode where you have to just like go back, take notes. Me personally, I can't, and I'm not telling my listeners, I'm not discouraging them from doing this, but I can't work out when I'm listening to podcasts because I got to write down so much and take so many notes. Guilty pleasure.
When I do a walk, if I do a walk, in my neighborhood, to a podcast.
Yep, and I like that too because I can have my phone and type if I need to remember something. I'm a quote guy, so I like a lot of those. Next one for you. What's a guilty pleasure you have, other than being a Cowboy fan?
Well, yeah, there's that, because you got that's the commitment that you got to be a real fan to be a Cowboys fan, because it's been a long, won that Super Bowl, but probably my guilty pleasure, reality TV. Like, for some reason, I like whatever reason, and it's just weird because I know a lot of it's so, but just to see people just being extra, man, fascinating, and I have no idea why. But the thing is for me is, one, help people all day, motivate. Like, I just want to come home and just breathe out of my mouth cells. And so just watching people do crazy stuff is just, it's something that or put a lot of thought into. So that's probably my guilty pleasure.
What's your go-to? Are you like a Amazing Race, Hell's Kitchen, Real World? Like, what's your go-to?
It's funny you say Real World because, man, I used to watch all the seasons of Real World. They did like a reboot where they're bringing like reunions of all the Real World. So, there's this Facebook watch, and it starts playing everything that you want to see, right? This algorithm, the Real World.
Oh, yeah.
And kept feeding me more real world from the old real world episodes. That's definitely one of them.
Like the
But
Miz
man,
type.
yeah, there was Real World in New Orleans where they had David. I don't know if you're like
I remember that one.
we do we be. He would do some type of melody thing. Nobody knows. I didn't do it that well either. So, but yeah, I thought it was funny, and it just now that I guess the new episode, he changed his name to Tokyo. He and then he, I don't know. He just kind of reformed himself or something. It's kind of weird, but I find people interesting, right? So,
Yeah.
in general, have a reason why we do things, or a reason why we are the way we are, and I like to kind of understand about a person so I can really understand. And so sometimes, even those reality shows, the dynamic of putting a bunch of people in a house from all walks of life, and I find that fascinating for whatever reason.
All right, so next one. Before you die, other than going and becoming a part of the cast of The Real World, what is something you want to do?
Oh man, well, I don't want to be a cast of The Real World. Definitely don't want to do. And you know what? I want to travel in Africa. I haven't been there before. I know there, and I would love to deploy there. But I just want to kind of go back and see just that continent, and my origins fascinates me for one thing. But man, just being able to travel and see other countries, so I can have a better perspective on my own country, because I think in our country haven't been anywhere to where they don't have anything to compare, and that's the beauty of us being in the military, man. We travel to places that we probably would never, and we can gain a perspective to where, you know what, let me compare the foolery with the foolishness I've seen in other countries, just to say, you know what, it's not perfect, but it's much better than how people are living in other areas, traveling to get a greater appreciation. And so I would love to go to the continent of Africa, and also take my kids there so they can get a better perspective too, because just exposing them to other lives in other countries, man, it's just so helpful for them as they become.
Yeah, 6 years in Germany was the best thing for my daughter, letting her see other cultures. But you mentioned Africa. It's kind of funny because I was going to go TDY for about a month to Africa in March of 2020.
Oh yeah,
and we all know what happened in March
COVID.
of 2020. So squashed what was to me going to be a dream TDY to go work with the Senegalese Air Force. So still bummed about that one. All right, final question for you. Last one. This is the last question that I've been asking all of our guests here on these Fearful Five. What is something that you are afraid of?
I'm afraid of my insecurities. I put, and not I guess name a specific insecurity, but I think I sometimes I stop myself from doing things, get totally killed or crushed. But insecurities stifle my progress or don't allow me to start. And I think the hardest thing is starting. Once I start, I'm full fledged. I'm going.
Yeah.
I'm going. But sometimes I'll overthink, and I'll be like, nah, and scared to take this risk because this, that, and the third. But I've just really decided to focus on and really do. I could figure out how to do mistakes, but I still get stifled in my own mind and my own insecurities. And so I'm really afraid of because, I could be missing out on opportunity on getting opportunities for my family or my friends, or because I'm in my own head. So that's probably my biggest fear.
I'm like, you went toe for toe with the great one. So yeah, it's like, what is it with The Rock? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You hopped on a Zoom call and held your own with him. So, but yeah, definitely what you're saying. Our insecurities, get comfortable being uncomfortable I've been hearing that forever and a day, most of my career. But yeah, my wife studies human psychology, and she was always telling me, she's like, the biggest adversary you're ever gonna have is your mind,
Yes.
and always gonna stop you. Nobody else will. It'll always be your mind that keeps you from doing things. So I appreciate you opening up and sharing that.
Oh no,
Now
smart lady.
let's get you to open up a little bit more now and share your story. Talk to us about your upbringing, Shreveport, Louisiana. Am I right?
Yeah. So grew up in Shreveport. In the projects of Section 8, where my mom was a single mom, had three kids, one, and the first, my oldest brother is special needs. So it was to keep food on the table, and we had to grow up really fast, and we were I couldn't even imagine, like I was staying at like 5-6 years old, right? Because my mom had to go to work. But a little, I mean, the household was a little fractured and broken. But I had lived literally up the hill from where we lived, and she was like the family. She was the backbone. She was the heartbeat of the entire family. And for some reason, at a young age, more so than anybody else in my life. And so most people that know me know that my grandmother, and it's the only reason I wasn't out in the streets. I hung out in the streets, but enticed to do what everybody else was doing, selling drugs and gang violence and all this other stuff. We're kind of in that world. But my grandmother, for some reason, she did enough, intrigued me enough to hang around her. And so I grew up wanting to be like my grandmother. She played, you know what I'm saying? She was a hustler, basically, because she would have a job, but she would pick up cans. She was like the candy lady, and people come to her house and she'd sell candy that she'd buy from the grocery store or ID. And so she never really like needed money or financial help. And so that just I was like, because my grandfather died when I was maybe about 6 years old, and so it was her and her cousins and her sister, a bunch of women, to be honest with you. Like they would all be playing dominoes, and I would sit over there and I would watch them play dominoes. They beat my behind a lot, and so like I said, it was that was really got me going in the right direction, and I owe everything, all good things that came from me came from my grandmother.
That's awesome to hear. I tell you what, something about grandmothers and some dominoes. My grandmother
Oh
was
yeah.
cutthroat. I saw the worst side of my grandmother when it came to playing some dominoes with her.
Oh yeah. You didn't want no problem. You don't want no my grandmother dominoes, man. But that's all we do now as a family when we get together. My grandmother, 2004. But man, all together and aunts, we all played dominoes. Spades still a little bit, but definitely more domino. That was our game. But like I said, we grew up in the projects, killings, drugs. I did like sports, basketball, but I didn't stick with basketball because my mom was struggling so much. I decided to get a job, and my first job was at McDonald's. And so,
you were Calvin from the old McDonald's
yeah,
commercial.
I was Calvin was somebody I was like, you know what? I'm gonna be Calvin. Calvin used to walk down the neighborhood, everybody knew his name, and then
Helped the old lady
once I
cross
finally
the street.
started, yeah. But when I started working there, I was like, man, this is some hard work, man. I don't know, man, but I don't know how long I can do this. But it was, for me, it was like taking a little bit of pressure off my mother by her not having to worry about buying my clothes and focus more on my little sister and my older brother. And so that was always just trying to help her out as much as I could. I probably, I like the greatest son. Me and her, once I got of a certain age, we started having a little friction. It's all part of, thinking I'm a man and growing into my own. And yeah, it was an interesting childhood. I did, and we can talk about this a little bit later about me discovering my father years ago. And so that's
really, yeah. Tell us about that.
So, man. So, for those that, okay, so I'll kind of paint the picture. Grew up knowing, I knew my father's name, didn't know who have a desire to meet him at all.
Right.
And that's your responsibility to come to me. It's not my responsibility to come to you. As I grew up, and I never really questioned my mom about my father or anything like this. Come to me. She would say, if you ever want to know anything about your father, come talk to me. And so I was 11, 12 years old, but I never took her up on it. And so, those that I don't know, I started my career off in the Marine Corps. So I joined the Marines because I wanted to report, and I wanted to get out of my mom's house. I wanted to kind of be independent. Got out of the Marines, and I watched the movie Antoine Fisher. So if you've never seen Antoine Fisher, it's a
good movie,
very powerful, and it's a movie about reconnecting with where his roots. And that movie inspired me to say, you know what? Let me find out who my dad is. At least let me. And if I have to worry about my hair falling out or whatever the case may be, so I really just made me just say, you know what? So I talked to that aunt, the one that told me she could find him if I needed him. And I was about 22, 23 years old, and we met. At the time I was in the reserves because I got out of the Marine Corps and I was in the Air Force Reserve at Barksdale. I met him for lunch. We had a good conversation. I didn't grill him about. I wanted to kind of let him know that, listen, I turned out okay. And then I'm engaged to be married. I got another son on the way. So I just wanted where I'm at in life. And me and him had a good conversation, and we kind of went our separate ways. And I never heard from him again. And so I thought it was your responsibility when I was 6, 7, 8, 23. I thought it would be okay. I kind of made the first step to try to have, and then I didn't hear from him again. And so at that point I was like, I'm good. Like, mad at him or anything. It's just, it is what it is. And so fast forward about a year and a half ago, so 5 years ago, I did the ancestry.com, because I did the ancestry.com so I could figure out where I'm from, or like,
right.
I got a little Irish in me, Scandinavian, and a whole bunch of other, national. I didn't realize that the ancestry connects DNA to people that have done it. One day, from a young lady, my dad, and so she was like, our DNA's matched really close. Like, I know you, or who are you? And I said, well, my daddy's name is Michael. And she said, that's my grandfather. And so, like, oh my goodness, like, you're my uncle. And nobody knew I existed, like, at all. So
Wow.
I had a brother that passed away. Got a bunch of nieces didn't know I existed. Now I kind of knew from the conversation that we had that he had kids, and I was hoping to meet them at some point. But I found out that I was her uncle. She immediately called her mother. Her mother sent me up. She was like, "We need to talk." And so her mother was a little calm. She didn't think it was real. That's she didn't think. And
Yeah.
then so I was 23, 24. I said I met him and with him. And as soon as I said camera, she's like, he cared. She grew up with him in her life the whole time. And as soon as I said, the light bulb clicked on for her, and she was like, "Oh my God, like you're not lying. Like she's pissed off now. She's pissed off at him." So she immediately calls him, and he doesn't deny it at all. Like he was like, "Yeah, I was ashamed." And so, and the thing is my sister lives in Dallas, and so she was literally probably about 25-minute drive from me the whole time.
And you were already in Dallas.
And I was already in Dallas, yeah.
Wow.
And yeah, so it was a lot. Like I said, I'm going through I'm going through therapy right now to really the whole relationship and how do I want to know the truth? Do I want to know what happened to uncover? Because right now he's in a situation right now where and so he's a little loopy, and he kind of goes off the deep end as far as conversation goes. Know how much I want to grill him about anything. I forgive him, forgiveness in my mind, but I'm still kind of things. So I'm just trying to overcome those and through therapy and other means, because I talked about this most of my life, man. I keep a lot of stuff and trying to talk to people and open up to folks is something that's I'm trying to embrace. So definitely.
Yeah. No, I definitely appreciate you sharing that. That's a crazy story. And
Yeah.
yeah, I know for me personally, I had some stuff with my dad that my dad passed away when I was 11 years old. But then I started to find out more about his story throughout time. And I know for me, like I would give anything to have that conversation and be like, let me ask you about this and this and this.
Yeah.
Um, and not just what I know, but yeah, kudos to you for talking to someone first about that. And yeah, for just doing what you're doing with it. That's a lot. That's heavy. That's heavy
It
stuff.
it is, and the thing is me being in the middle 25 years now, and people trusting to come to me for listen. If something's going on, go get help. Go get help. But at the whole time, I was never doing it myself. At times, I feel like a hypocrite. It's like, man, I'm dealing with this heavy stuff, and I have yet to go and try to get help for myself. And so one day I was like, you know what, screw it. I'm just because it literally probably a couple days before that, somebody had came to me with a problem that they had, and I was trying to help them through that situation. And I did recommend that I'm struggling with a couple of things in life, and I've yet to or get some type of person that I can talk to. So it's for me because I've been able to really
Mhm.
because they ask some really poignant questions, right? Some questions,
Yeah, they do.
yeah, and I'm like, man, I wasn't expecting because they want to listen and they want to console and whatever, but this goes after some questions, and it makes me really think. And
Yeah. No, the questioning piece, you are absolutely right. I have no shame in saying it. I went to mental health last year for the first time, and I got in there and I thought it was just going to be, I sit back on a chair and tell them my story. No, some of the questions she asked me, I was like, "Oh, okay, wasn't ready for that one."
Yeah,
Um, it gets
exactly.
you thinking different, uh, and a lot of times when we go to places like that, we, to seek some help, we want people to agree with us and hear us, and that's why we seek out people that we're really close to. We want that affirmation, but no, she was like, "Have you ever thought that maybe you do this or you do and huge eye opener for me on a lot of
Oh
things, and
yeah,
it really it's not something I had to continue doing, but it's something that I know is a option that's there. And it kind of sucks. My mental health provider actually PCS'd. So afterwards it was, hey, do you want to continue with someone else or move on? And I was at a good spot then. But I mean, we work on our bodies and we post selfies. We go out and interact with people socially, and we take selfies of, I mean, we did it at AFSA, and
oh yeah,
but whenever we decide that we want to work on ourselves mentally, it's like there's a stigma of, "Oh, you don't tell people that, you don't talk about it." But I mean, you got to. I mean, I have no shame in saying, hey, things happen, things pop up, talk to someone. So I appreciate you, especially as a senior non-commissioned officer, sitting on here and saying, yeah, I've been talking to someone, because people are afraid. They're afraid to do it.
yeah. Now listen, we've grown up in a, been a stigma to talk about anything
Hmm.
that's not status quo, right?
Yeah.
Shortly after, you told me that March 2020 that you were about to, but shortly after that, the whole George Floyd thing kind of blew up, right? Right,
Yeah.
and conversations that we never even thought about having about social issues or politics. Those were the things that you don't talk about. And I was pretty I was at Keesler Air Force Base at the time when incident was shown on TV, and man, and I, I was inside just watching it on TV, right? And so I come to work the next day, and in my head, well, there there was a tech sergeant that was the functional manager at the hospital. Um, I was a superintendent squadron, and so he wasn't in my squadron. He knew me from passing because we've had a conversation. He was a black male, and he said,
Hmm.
"Hey, Chief, you got a second?" So I told him to come to my office. We closed the door, and he was just, and I could see it on his face. But I felt the exact same way. So I knew he wanted to, and so he wanted to talk about, um, he wanted to talk about what just happened, what he just saw on television, that has been prevalent in his life, his whole lifetime, in my life, and so me and him started talking, and he was a little upset that why isn't leadership talking about it? I had a discussion.
Mm.
And I said, man, listen, we can't wait on leadership to talk about this. Listen, if this, that means there's an airman probably in your section that feels like this, and so you can start that conversation. It's Air Force or big leadership to do anything, right? And this was before K. Wright pushed his message. We saw K. Wright's message,
Yeah.
Chief Master Air Force 18's message. That came, but so that happened, um, and to be honest, more than that tech sergeant needed that conversation.
Yeah.
Like the fact that he came to me and trusted me, like I need to went home that same day. I saw on Facebook somebody put, I would love to talk about it. And at that point I'm like that's bullshit. Like why can't we talk about it? I'm in the office.
Yeah.
I typed an email to my whole entire squad, and I said, listen, I know, we don't normally talk about controversial things, but there was something that had really hit me in my spirit. And if you want to talk about it, come to my office and we can have a conversation. I got so many awesome emails back to say, hey, Chief, thank you for sending that message out, expecting leadership to say anything or do anything about it. And it was just me like this. And then as soon as that happened, my squadron commander, my boss, told the wing commander wanted me to come over there and let's start some conversations across the wing. And so and not to say we were the first ones to do it, but we just kind of big Air Force to come out with this message on what we should be doing. We just kind of went, man, that was a pivotal part of my career where I just realized the power of conversation, talking, like whether it's therapy, whether it's let's talk about why you feel this way, or and you know, we may agree to disagree or really change my perspective on a whole bunch of things, but man, there's so much power in just having a conversation.
Well, like you said, it can change the way someone's perspective is, and just being open to listening to each other. It's not somebody's trying to convince one another how, you know, what's right or what's wrong to them. It's just hear where I'm coming from. And that's why you mentioned y'all kind of got the ball rolling with that. It's trickled all the way down to even like the course that I teach at APMEIC, where we just recently had a couple of instructors get certified in crucial conversations. And I love that because so many students that come through our course, you know, one of their biggest concerns is what happens if another incident like George Floyd becomes mainstream and this happens and it's brought up in a classroom, or what if, diversity, inclusion, and equity, that's a big thing right now. So it's how do we have those conversations? And it's all about us teaching them how to be comfortable having it. And like I said, you have senior leadership here talking about it and pushing out an email, you and Chief Wright and all these people. It goes a long way. It really does. And it feels like others have a voice to express where they're coming from as well. So kudos.
No. Life is about understanding, man. I think that's one of the things. Life is about understanding. And the more I understand about you and the more you understand about me, then I think they're a whole lot better. And I think that's the friction in the world is people are not willing. And it goes beyond racial lines. It goes beyond just if I take the time to understand you as like that's what this is, right? The essence of your podcast is understanding the person that you're. How I can get a kind of glimpse in, you know, why they do things the way they do, why they may feel like this, even though it may be just kind of one way to look at things, but now you can really understand because you can unpack all this stuff. Shout out to you for having a podcast where you're talking about some stuff where people are maybe or revealing, but man, it gives so much clarity into who that person the way they are.
Yeah, even and I appreciate it. Even Chief Wright, when he was talking about the racial disparity between people getting paperwork and not, hearing his perspective on that was very interesting for me compared to what everybody else had been saying for the longest time. So having him on here talking about that was really cool as well. So no, I think this is good stuff. Like you said, getting deeper understanding of people. And one thing to switch gears that I want to get deeper understanding is you joined the military in 97, but you didn't join the Air Force. You joined the Marine Corps. So talk to us about you did kind of mention a minute ago that you wanted to join. I joined because I wanted to kind of break away from home. I wanted to go out and do something different. I actually kept it from my mom for a long time that I joined. It was this huge secret I had from her. And then I finally told her, and she was like, no, cool. Okay, you're joining the military. But there was that struggle there of me distancing myself from the nest. When you joined, how did that decision come to be? And then how did that go over with your family?
Oh, man. So it was crazy how it happened. So I just started, and this was before Facebook. This was before cell phones. This is before all that stuff, right? I had one of my good friends. He graduated high school. I knew he went to the branch. So, all of a sudden, beginning of my senior year of high school, my friend, and he's in a Marine uniform, and he's there for recruiters assistance, right? So, what's up, man? I'm all like,
good old rap,
chopping it up. Yeah, and you doing? I didn't know what the Marine Corps was, to be honest with you. I knew Army, right? I knew Army in Air Force Base, and everybody where I come from thinks you're in the Army, no matter what. So,
regardless of what branch.
Regardless of what branch, it's like whenever they say you're still in the Army. So I was talking to him, and he's like, "Hey man, come over here, man." And so we talked, and he's like, "Yeah, I want a T-shirt." So he's like, "Yeah, come over here, get a T-shirt, and sign your name and your number right here." And I'm thinking like, okay, well, whatever. I just want a T-shirt. That's cool.
It's a good recruiter.
And so I didn't realize that I was gonna get a recruiter calling me like, and so, man, so I felt like I had no desire to something I was even considering. I got finessed, to be honest with you, and my recruiter, I still to this day, man. And I was like, dude, you really finessed me, like for real. So so he calls me, and he was like, so what do you want to do? What do you really know? So when you tell a recruiter that you don't know what you want to do in life, that means you want to be a United States. So he went full court press on me. Right? He full court press. He was like, "Yeah, come to the practice test, practice ASVAB." So I took the ASVAB. I did pretty good, and so he's like, "Why don't you? I'm gonna put you in this hotel, and you can take the real ASVAB. Put me in my own hotel room." I thought that was cool. So I'm that gullible, right? And so the MEPS did the real ASVAB, did pretty good. And so after he got like, well, I'm gonna come get you and bring your check stuff from McDonald's with you. And check stuff from McDonald's. Of course, I'm a high school student. I'm working part-time, $7.89 on the check stuff that I brought in from 2 weeks of work, right? A scale, right? And I've never seen a comma before, in a set of numbers in my bank account.
Yeah.
And I start looking at all these commas, the ranks of this, that, and the third. And mind you, he drove this Escalade. He had like 12-inch speakers in the back, so he's bumping Tupac or whatever. So
yeah,
man, he gave me the ghetto dream, right? He's like, man, you could be making this. Look what you're making. And I was like, man, that does like a lot of money, and money was, So what sealed the deal was, I was like, yeah, let me think of time. Never talked to my mom about it. Never talked about any of my family members. I just doing this on my own. He came and picked me up on a Sunday. He's like, hey, I'm in the area. Like, yeah, you're in the area in Shreveport, just in the area on a Sunday. He's like, I'm in the area. Let me come pick you up. There's this park in Shreveport when I was growing up that everybody would go on Sundays. And, it's out. You would have everybody kind of pulling through the park, kind of driving through. Passenger side of this Escalade with these rims, right? And I got the window down, and girls were waving at me. I felt like I was in a parade going through the park. And so he says, this could be you if you were a Marine. I was like, and then next thing I know, I was ducking and swearing in. So I was in the delayed entry program for about basically. And I finally told people, like, you know what? I signed up for the Marines. And they're like, dude, are you the Marines? They're freaking nuts and all this other stuff. And I was, even a grandmother, my uncle was, her son, my uncle was in the Army, and he was in Desert Storm, and she was working. She wouldn't have wanted me to go, but at that point, I felt like I need to make a decision. And I told myself, and I don't know where it came from, but in my head, I was like, you know what? If I can do 4 years in the Marine Corps in life, like, that was my mentality my whole entire senior year until I just took summer, and then you could have me after the summer. So September 8th, 1997, shipped off to San Diego to MCRD, Marine Corps Recruiting Depot, and that was my story.
And you were an administrative clerk for 4 years.
Yep.
In the Marines. And then what made you decide to separate?
While I was in the Marines, I had my oldest child. I had a girl when I joined the Marines, and I would go home back and forth. I was homesick my first probably 2 or 3 years, and so I was stationed in Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. I would drive from Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, to Shreveport, an hour drive, one way, just to go home for a 4-day weekend drive. And just for a 4-day weekend. So I wasn't actually being at home, but ended up getting my high school, had my son, and then I would come back and forth. And it's from 1.5. You come home and go pick him up, and he wouldn't know who I was. It broke my heart. I didn't have my dad, and man, I gotta be. And me and his mom were kind of our directions in life anyway, and so marriage was out of the question. So, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna make a decision to get out so I can be a father. Like, that was my dad, because I didn't have my dad there, and I didn't want to grow up and my son feel like this was before, like I said, this was before cell phones and FaceTime and all that other stuff. So it wasn't like I could just FaceTime. Like, if I'm not there and he's 1.5, 2 years old, he can't talk on the phone or anything. So I just really made a conscious decision. It's like, you know what? I don't know what I'm gonna do when I get home. But I need dad. And so that's what I did. I went home, got out, moved back in with my mom, and I was sleeping on the couch with her. And I got to do something. Like, I'm home, but now I can't just sit around here and do the same stuff I was doing. When I left.
What's plan B?
Yeah. And so my cousin was in the Air Force, and the crazy thing is my separation date from the Marine Corps was September 7th, 2011. 4 days later was September 11th.
Yeah. Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah. And so, like, I'm stop loss. I'm gonna have to go back. Like, I wasn't ducking it, but I just knew stuff was about to hit the fan, because that was like, I was literally laying on my couch. I knocks on the door and said, "Hey man, they're blowing up Washington D.C. right now in New York." And so I turned on the TV, and everybody knows where they were when 9/11 happened.
It's our Kennedy assassination.
Yeah, exactly. And so I'm thinking, like, man, so my cousin was in the reserves, in the Air Force Reserve, and I felt compelled to still serve. So I was like, I'm going to go to a recruiter in the Air Force Reserve. I didn't want to leave Louisiana because I wanted to kind of get my stuff in order with my. So I joined the Air Force Reserve, and since now I had start putting reservists on active duty orders. At March, literally, come on, I got put on active duty orders, and so I was helping out, getting people processed to go overseas, and so they were flying B-52s to stage to go into Afghanistan and other areas, and so that's kind of got in the Air Force through the back door, and then so I was in the reserves for about 3.5. Like, you know what? I got my son in order. Like that, I met my wife. I love the military. I love the family orientation of the military. I knew I couldn't much longer, and I just wanted to see something different. And so that's when I put in the application for good, and that's what happened in 2005.
What would you say is the biggest misconception of the Air Force Reserves?
Oh man, that is basically civilians, which Marine Corps to the Air Force Reserves is that's the biggest spec, because the Marine Corps, it's dress right dress, it's formations, and then in the reserves, everybody's kind of chilling and kicking back. But I guess the best that reservists aren't really military, right? They just they do a bunch of crap, and then they go home, and that's the furthest. A lot of these reservists are doing their job, what they're doing in the military, right? And they are much more advanced and have a much specifically medical, right? So if you're a nurse in the reserves, you're a nurse in the civilian world, where you're getting a bunch of for your job.
Yeah.
To when you deploy, you and so I think that's the biggest misconception from the reserves is thinking that they chill, they don't do much, and then once they get activated or once they get deployed, we got to teach them everything. I think they have a skill set that they bring to the fight that I think sometimes active duty members.
Yeah, huge value with the reserves. I know a bunch of reserves friends of mine. So, you mentioned you applied to return to active duty service in 2003, and from there, I mean, you've had an amazing career. What is that one assignment that stands out to you the most, that you look back, you're like, oh, glory days?
So I think the assignment that shaped me the most was my first assignment when I in San Antonio, and I was a staff. Yeah, so I was at LAC, and so the crazy thing about my career is I was a staff sergeant twice in a tech. I got out of the Marines as an E5. I came into the reserves as a staff sergeant. I made tech sergeant. I came back on active duty. I did not have enough active duty years to keep tech sergeant, so they sergeant. So, which I was cool with. I was like, whatever, it is what it is. Give me some constructive credit because I was an E5. So normally your data rank starts when you come back on active duty, but since I had a bunch of reserve time, they gave me some constructive credit, so they backdated my data rank to when I.
Okay.
So when I came on, I was able to test for tech, and I ended up making it. I was a staff sergeant probably for about 8 months, but man, I was in outpatient records. So I'm in the Air Force, which is a medical administration, basically. NCOIC of outpatient records, the biggest outpatient records places you could ever imagine. I had about 30 folks in my section. Probably about 22 were first-term airmen. So there was only 2 incidents split. So I had 9-10 people, and the other NCO supervised. And when you're saying like first-term airmen, 18, half of them were dating, half of them were not dating each other. Some of them were pregnant. It was
priorities all in disarray.
Whatever you could think of, it happened, man. And great training, because normally in my career field, outpatient records is like the first tech school. So they always get people first coming in and out of tech school. They put them in outpatient records, train them, you get them spun up, and then they'll rotate them to a different section. So it's like a freaking you're forming 4 AOs through the outpatient records. But those and it's only so much that you can handle as an NCO. So I learned so much as an from those airmen and their issues, right? And it was, like I said, it was a gauntlet for supervision, right? Whether it's LOCs. It's I'm having problems with this person and that person, or like I got all of my training to be a people person, really, from that standpoint in my life, to know that, man, I can impact people as a staff sergeant, and I don't have to be a chief, and I don't have. But in the moment, I did not know that.
Mm-hmm.
It's long down the road for me to reflect on the impact I had on people, because people ask, like, why are you? I get those phone calls all the time that when I'm ready to, like, you know what, I think I'm done. Hey, chief, I just made master today, and what you did when you were a staff sergeant, and I was an airman, and this, that, and the third. And most people, are kind of pissed off about it, and thinking about this. And I'm like, just think about the impact you've had on people in your life, right? So I was a staff sergeant, and this person was an airman. Now they're a master sergeant. I'm a chief, but I was a staff sergeant, and the impact that I had on at that point in their life, they're talking about when I was a staff sergeant. So you can make an impact no matter what your rank is. And that now that I've kind of went through all these jobs, that I can tell you that was probably who he is today as a military member, to be honest with you.
That's awesome. And yeah, you're right. You hear like people are making rank and doing things because of something you did. That's motivating. That's inspiring, right there. It's good stuff to hear. Talk to us about your sweet gig you have now as the Senior Enlisted Advisor with the Army Air Force Exchange Service, and talk to us about the importance of the exchange as well.
Yes, of course, my only probably experience with AAFES was going to Class 6 on Friday, and or looking for a PlayStation or something, right? I had no idea kind of that I had no idea that it was really in the organization. And even before I got this job, literally 2 months before the time that I knew that they had a chief position here. And so I was fortunate enough to see the advertisement, did some digging, knew some people for me, and I was able to, get this job. But man, this is like the best in the military, to be honest with you, man. It's an awesome job. I did much AAFES does for our military community. So AAFES is a DoD director. It's not this random, organization that we just contracted out, like the organization that tries to raise as much money as they can to get in the Air Force and the Space Force through dividends, right? And so the cool, like a actual business, like it's not like what we're used to is November 15th, and I got this much fallout money, and let me figure out a way to spend all this money before that's what we're used to in the military. But here, they're trying to spend money, because the more money they don't spend on what can give back to the military community. And so through dividends, we cut like $280 million in dividends that we give back to the Army and Air Force. That money goes back to your non-appropriated funds. So for folks that don't know, appropriate September 30th, it expires that we get from the non-appropriated funds is the money that we raise through the business. We give that back, and so that goes to your MWR, so your fitness centers, your CDCs that you see outside of the house. That money is used for there. So we're able to give trickle that down to wing commanders so they can use on their installations to get those MWR purposes. So they're an integral part of the quality of life, and also, which didn't really dawn on me. So I deployed to Baghdad, right?
Yep.
And I kind of took granted downrange, right? You kind of expect it, right? And you're just like, okay, there's until I got this job, it didn't dawn on me that these are actual associates that go down range to sell us a Snicker bar, right? Or to sell us a rip it wherever we need
Hunt's Pizza, all that stuff. Yeah.
Green bean, all those different things. That's AAFES. AAFES is on the front line selling wherever we are, right? And so I was thinking about a whole bunch of other stuff, right? But now that I'm in this job, I'm like, the organization literally goes wherever we go. And why would an organization like, let me check with AAFES first to see if they have it before I go to Amazon, Walmart, or whatever the case may be. Not to say that I don't. I shop at Walmart. I shop at Amazon, but to look on everything that I need. Amazon can drop it off to your door, and we understand that. And I don't think we can't compete with that at AAFES. We can't online and it comes to your door in 2 hours because Amazon's a big machine. It's got distribution center, but their money is going back to their business and their business model and whatever. The money is going back to the military community. So I always try to put that, man, you got folks that are willing to go down range and themselves in harm's way just to give you something, so you can have clean underwear from the BX while you're downrange. So like I said, I love being the SEL for this organization, man. I love you. It's humbling for me. I get a chance to travel, go to all the Army, Air Force bases. I talk to military leadership to kind of tell them because they do so much. It's I kind of touch the surface on a couple of things, but they do so much. But I get a chance to tell their stories, and I get a chance to go and they walk me through their store and how they do it and all the work that goes on behind the scenes. And I get a chance to coin them and thank them. And the thing is, if you go to a BX and you talk to maybe 20 people, these 12 or 13 of those people have been doing what they do for the past 20 plus years.
Yeah.
It's amazing that nobody ever leaves this organization. We just did a 53-year retirement in AAFES.
Sure. Wow.
And this is a custodial work, right? Retirement.
Wow.
And you know what I'm saying? So just imagine investing in one organization. Like the organization's got to be pretty good for you to stick around.
Yeah, that the importance of the commissary, the BX, the shop, like everywhere. When I was in Germany, my daughter, I was talking to her this morning about it, and she said, "Oh yeah, the one at Ramstein, that huge."
KMC is freaking amazing.
KMC.
So I haven't got a chance to see it yet. Next year to go see it for the first time. I've heard stories about it.
She's like, that's my childhood. She's like, when I think back to my childhood, like for me, going to a KB Toys or a Toys R Us or a Walmart or something like that. Well, my daughter, all she had was the commissary and exchange. And so she grew up for 6 years old to 11 years old. And that was a lot of her core memories were going to see Santa Claus there and doing the Black Friday shopping there and having dinners at the food court with friends and stuff. So it has significant importance with us too. And just imagine what it's doing for all those families, especially overseas that don't have the convenience of, Amazon next day or Target or Walmart of all of these things. So really important, everything that y'all are doing, and really cool stuff to include this Chief Chat podcast we've talked about at the beginning of this. Tell everybody about what y'all do with the Chief's Chat. And then my question, this is a multiple question, which is something I try to shy away from. Who were you most nervous to interview?
Okay. So I'll kind of tell you how Chief Chat originated. My wife, to be honest with you. So my predecessor was Chief Master Sergeant Louis Reyes. March 2020 happened, right? Like you said, March 2020 happened. You couldn't go on your down all travel. Nobody could go anywhere, and that's a big part of this job is to travel.
Yeah.
So the folks here in our corporate communications directorate was like we got to figure the chief connected to the field, right? So he can get feedback and all kind of other things, right? Part of this podcast, Chief Chat, to specifically just to say, hey, you know what, to mitigate COVID. Here's how we're protecting you during your shopping experience. Went and did the first episode. I don't know if you can see the first episode, but it was a mess. Like it was all over the place. And like
they all are
talking about, yeah, and so they were just talking. You know, we're putting up these clear things. So you know, the cashier, we're putting these 6 feet markers so everybody knows where to stand. And so they decided to start doing something on a weekly basis. And then, you know, we have a bunch of brands that we sell in our store.
Mm-hmm.
One of our buyers was like, you know what? We got Mark Wahlberg that represents in the, you know, his
Wahlburgers.
What is it?
Oh, his pre-workout stuff, right?
Pre-workouts. Yeah.
Yeah.
So his pre-workouts, and we had the Wahlburgers thing open the Wahlburgers in Germany. They're like, well, since y'all started this podcast, to come on the podcast. So of course they on the podcast, and so Chief Reyes is talking to Mark Wahlberg, and he's telling, I know you got some celebrity friends, man. You should try to get them to come on the show as well. Takes his phone out. He calls Mario Lopez on FaceTime during the actual interview. So,
yeah, AC Slater on there.
Yeah. So he's got Mario Lopez, and he's like, oh yeah, bro, this Chief Chat, man, with the exchange and this, that, and the third. So Mario's like, okay, cool, I'll do it, Mario. And in between, they were starting to hit up. They figured, you know what, if we can get and show them that we've got some big talent, well, let's start reaching out either through brands, the store, or let's just cold pitch the publicists for folks that we know, right? Because there's some celebrities that love the military, they always do stuff. And so we start cold pitching a bunch of stuff, breaking the lineup. We start people saying yes. We're like, we weren't expecting, I guess they weren't expecting people to say yes. Started getting all these people lined up to do the show. And so kind of fast forward to when I get the episodes in, like they had already talked to Aaron Rodgers. They had talked to, you know, they had brought in K. Wright, the Chief Master Sergeant Air Force at the time. They brought in Sergeant Major. So we started talking to military leaders. We started talking to athletes. We started talking to celebrities. And then so when my first big one, and this was the one that I was most nervous to talk to, was Diddy. So I literally know. And so I check in. I actually go back. So I actually I did a TDY here because being him going to be gone by the time I got here, so he wanted to do somewhat of a handoff, and so he let me get in on the CX. So CX Colon Lopez, we had him on the show and on that Chief Chat as a co-host, just to kind of get my feet wet, and that's when I challenged
to it.
I challenged the CX to a breakdance video where he was breakdancing against an army. So I don't know if you've seen the video that went viral, but I think one of the army soldiers challenged the SEAC to a breakdancing downrange, and so he gets, and the SEAC is a really good breakdancer. Yeah, like I saw this video, and so I told him if he ever come to Dallas, like I'm gonna break out this printer, go at it, or whatever the case may be. So that's the first time that I was kind of like I'm pretty comfortable.
Yeah.
But then they were like, hey, you got you got weeks. I'm like, oh crap! Like I grew up on Biggie Smalls and familiar with Puff Daddy, P Diddy, all the iterations of him, and so that was my big name guest. That I was super nervous before each chief chat. We get a chance to I'm like, dude, he's just chilling. He's like sitting over his couch. He's like leaning camera or a laptop that they set up for him, and I'm like, man, he's just a regular person. And then I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna be myself, and we'll go from there.
That's what I was gonna ask you. Is I'm curious because even like for me recording here, almost every single guest I've had, regardless of who they are, we log in and we'll have like a little small talk. Usually, sometimes there'll be some nerves before getting in and meeting someone, especially if it's the first time. I tend to do pre-meetings before. So, do y'all do pre-meetings, or is it just because I know like The Rock was filming when y'all met with him. So is it just, hey, this is set up through somebody, y'all log in, and then is it like DJ pops up, you pop up, y'all start talking, then hit record?
Yeah, so it depends. So their team, if they got handlers, they'll log in a little bit early, maybe 5-10 minutes of time before the actual start time, and we'll be able to get it. I got a chance to maybe talk to them for about a good 7 minutes before we went live. Yeah, and like right when it's about to start, like we'll have 11 start time, and we're like, okay. And I'm like, hey, how you doing? Thank you for doing this. And then my producers, hey, so this is what we're about to happen, this, that, and the third, and then we just go. And so sometimes it's I get a little time to talk to them beforehand. Sometimes they're like, I got 30 minutes, so we gotta jump right into it, and then we go from there.
Wow. That is super cool what all you're doing and who all you're talking to. Definitely, folks, like I said, check out the description. We'll have the link for Chief Chat, and it's incredible lineup. I mean, incredible lineup. You can get lost going through previous guests that they've had. What was your? Go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, so I'll tell you one cool thing. So Burt Reynolds, right? You got stash in the game, right? Hands down, ever, right? And so I got a chance to so his team was like, hey, we got him during this time frame, because Burt Reynolds used to be in the reserves. He used to be in the Army reserves, I believe, in California. And he's like, yeah, I'd love to do it. So I don't know if you've seen his Blue Bloods, or he's on a popular. He's playing like this sheriff or something, or chief of police or something. And so he's in his office in the studio, still dressed like he had just finished with in this show. And now he's doing Chief Chat in the full costume. Awesome interview, man. Super cool guy, down to earth. We got a chance to mix it up and kind of stuff. But I was like, people were like they were commenting. They're like, he's on the scene of his and this, that, and the third. And so that was just one of the many kind of just cool moments. How did I get this job? How did I get to this point in my life where I'm talking to Burt Reynolds and Shaq and Matthew McConaughey and Mark Wahlberg? Like I've talked to Mark Wahlberg so many times. Like he literally he calls me KO without even realizing that like 3 times already. So it's surreal, dude. I'm just. But the cool thing what I get to do is when I get a big enough, like on The Rock, I brought in an airman, or I brought in or whatever. Garth Brooks. So I talked to Garth Brooks. I'll tell you the story. I was at Cannon Air Force, not really pleased with AAFES at the time, right? And so they wanted, some data. They wanted to to change out a couple of restaurants. And so we were there on the site visit to talk to the women, really, giving us our ass, to be honest with you. And so I was like, you know what? While I'm here, I said, give me 6 airmen that love guard. Send me. So I talked to the command chief. He sent it out that absolutely love Garth Brooks, whether it's they grew up because their mom and dad lived, whatever the case may be. And I got a chance to have Garth Brooks on the line. I had 6 airmen, 30 seconds to tell Garth Brooks whatever they want to tell him. Don't ask him a question, but just let him know. And Garth Brooks took individually. He was like, "Tell your mom I said," talking individually to those airmen. And I'm like, man, the fact that I'm able to like, because I shouldn't be the only one person talking to all these cool people. Like, I felt like, man, give this moment to other folks. So when you saw The Rock, it was one of my old troops that absolutely loves The Rock, and he was on there. He went into, what's the cartoon character that he in the movie? Oh my goodness!
You talking about
Moana. So he went into mode, and he started like going into character and singing happy birthday to her son. And that's the moments that I live for right there, man. It's not about me. It's about me sharing that with somebody else.
Yeah. No, it's incredible what you're doing. I thought that was cool too when you logged in to talk to him and you had other people on there with you as well. So kudos. Love the stories. If you ever need another friend to pass them off to, I'm available. But yeah, let me ask you this question. End of the day, when you look back, well, first of all, you look back at where you're at. You've reached the pinnacle of the enlisted force. You're a chief master sergeant of the Air Force. Biggest thing you've learned about yourself throughout this military journey?
So the biggest is that so I grew up in an environment where we didn't say I love you all the time. It wasn't prevalent in our household. You assume your mom loved you, and that's and it was that's a good assumption, but you didn't hear it. And you grew up not trusting anybody. And so I guarded and not really trusting people. Everybody had an ulterior motive, right? Not really knowing who they were, and love. You have to go through this, and I'm gonna go back to my Nintendo days. This Zelda, this journey to get to the last level, to get any type of kind of love from me. I was saving it for whatever the case may be, and then I had so many people along my journey that don't look like me, that didn't really owe me anything, but they went out of their way to help me get to where I am today. And I'm like, man, how many people did I miss out on by being so guarded and so from that environment where I felt like I had to survive, right? And I'm fighting these forces against me, and I gotta watch out for myself. And I got people that are willing to literally do anything in return. So I had to learn to love and trust people. I lead with love and I lead with trust. And then you can determine after, but when I first meet you, I'm gonna lead with love, I'm gonna lead with trust. And then if it comes out to it's something else, then I'll just away from that situation. But coming in guarded and jaded cost me a lot of opportunities coming in. So that's what I learned, that it's okay to love.
I know a lot of people who are deep into the career and they're still struggling with that. So, I definitely can resonate with it. And then end of the day, 50 years from now, people mention your name other than being an amazing podcast host and an amazing senior NCO. What do you want them to say about you?
I just want people to say that that's it. Just that simple. Like it's not about what rank I made in life. It's like, man, he got a pure heart, and he's just a good dude. And I kind of saw that. I kind of saw the importance of that ceremonies coming up, right? So, you would come up and you would go to the retirement ceremonies, just how you treated people, or how people. It wasn't all the stuff we lied on our EPRs about saving the government $2 billion and all this other stuff that we mission and all this other stuff. It's all about relationships and people, and being a good that's to the people that you are responsible for, or your family, or whatever the case may be. It's all about it. And so for me, I'm just like, if people can say, you know what, KO was just that's good enough for me. Like that's satisfying for me, because I'm not looking for, because I'm not perfect. I got a bunch of demons that I'm working through right now. I don't want you to see me as this person that's perfect. I want you to be like, you know what? Kendrick Lamar has this new album, and it says it's got a verse in there talking about. And so if you can see the God in me, because there's many elements of me, but if you can see the God in me, that's the goal, man. That's the goal for me in life. Is by any stretch of the imagination, but I really want to see people win. I want to help people. To be on the show, that was a no-brainer. Like it wasn't even a thought. And so say anything that helps anybody out there in the world, that's what I'll do. And so I appreciate this opportunity to be on your platform.
Yeah, like I told you, if someone wants to be on the Shadows, and like if I ever get requests or emails or people that are like, hey, I want to go on there, if I read it and it's just like they are absolutely perfect, it's not a good fit.
Yeah.
I need someone who's been on here and been down and bruised and banged and beat up and tapped out, and pulled themselves back up. And your story that you shared earlier, I mean, especially appreciate you opening up your father about seeking help, about just everything that you've been through, being transparent and vulnerable. Kudos to you for doing that and for taking time to sit here and do this today. And it was an honor to have you on here. And my question for you is, final comments do you have for the Shadows listeners?
So comments is once again, man, you only got one chance to do one life, right? You got this one vessel, and so you can spend it complaining about what you don't have, but man, we are surrounded by so many blessings in life. It is, and no matter what you came through, the fact that you're still here is a blessing. Able to even listen to my voice right now is a blessing, and I think I on my podcast, because I've talked to some cool people that I've got a chance to ask questions like this. One lady on, and she had a very kind of chipper attitude, right? She ended up for bunch of stars. And I was like, man, you got a great attitude. I was like, so when you were having an off day, like, because I told her, like, I have a similar attitude, like, happy-go-lucky, like, I want to have fun, but I wanted to know, like, what happens when you and you have to go in front of people and perform, and you have to go in front of people and do that.
Yeah.
And she told it, sometimes you have to be happy with just showing up. The fact that you show, and that hit me like a ton of bricks. I'm like,
just being here.
Some days aren't going to be the best days. That's good enough. And so I want people to really understand that lives, no matter where you are in your journey, and to have fun, and because we don't get do-overs in this thing. Not that I know of, unless in the afterlife. But from what I know right now, we don't get do-overs, and you can spend your life planning about everything under the sun, or you can really just enjoy what you have around you.
Somebody would always die to be in your shoes.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because somebody has, right now that wish they were here right now.
Yep.
And so, like
100%.
I said, yeah.
Well,
That's
I
my
can't
part.
thank you. Yeah, that was awesome. I can't thank you enough for doing this. Thank you for bearing with me. I've been fighting off this. I told you before we came on here, I've had injured bicep. I've had COVID. I've been coughing like crazy. Fighting through that. So I'm glad we were able to make this happen today. And yeah, let's definitely keep in touch. And folks, next week we will return with another episode of the Shadows podcast. We're inching closer and closer towards our Halloween episode. Got a special guest lined up for that. Also, we are getting very close to our 100th episode. So we're trying to get something special for y'all on that one as well. So until next week, we'll see you on another episode of the Shadows podcast.